Hi, I'm Sarah Goodyear, and this is The War on Cars. What you're about to hear is an excerpt from a Patreon bonus episode of the podcast. It's an interview with Sam Balto, a phys ed teacher in Portland, Oregon, who organizes bike buses to help his students get to school happy and energized. We featured excerpts from this conversation in episode 110, Back to School on the Bike Bus. And if you haven't listened to that already, you can learn much more about the international bike bus movement in that episode. If you want to hear my full interview with Sam Balto, you can get access to that and much more bonus content by becoming a Patreon supporter. Just go to thewaroncars.org and click Support Us. We'll send you stickers and a handwritten thank you note, too. And you'll get a special heads up when we're looking for listener contributions and when we do live shows. Here's a taste of my talk with Sam Balto.
I think the thing that I've seen with bike buses specifically in this iteration of them, over the past couple of years is bike buses are kind of this gateway drug to safe streets for kids movement. If us bike bus leaders play our cards right and we do the right things to build this movement, this could be our generation Stop Kindermord movement in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. And I think that really people are seeing how important mobility is for children, their independence, joy, freedom. And the bike bus is a tool and a mechanism to create that. Something I think about a lot is as a phys ed teacher, not every kid is going to play sports or feel successful on a team, but on a bike bus, that is a team and we need you to show up to be a part of that team, and there's a role for you, an important role, because there's safety in numbers. It's this crazy thing where everybody is showing up is making it safer for other people to show up, and for the people that are showing up, it makes it safer. So it's just this really amazing thing that I have students who might, have more difficulties in phys ed class or, have difficulties being on a team, but they're thriving in the bike bus.
Right.
They're right up front with me, leading the way, just beaming with huge smiles and being able to create these opportunities. And, it's just something for me personally is incredibly meaningful and impactful. But I think also just for, the average parent or community member, it really gets them to stop and think about how we allocate space for children and how we can do that differently.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. That's so profound. It's funny because I always say to people, I hated phys ed when I was a kid. I hated being on a team. It made me feel so anxious, but I always rode my bike. And, and I grew up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, and, it was a pretty hostile environment, but somehow that was the thing that I did. If there had been a bike bus, I would have been that person at the front, and I would have loved it. And it turns out I'm actually pretty athletic, but I never knew that in school because there was no context for me.
Yeah, and you're getting those leadership experiences. You're getting those team building experiences. Learning how to show up for others and learning how to show up for yourself and advocating for your health. I think it's so cool that parents will come up to me and be like, hey, so my son came home today and was like, Mom, I need to do the bike bus because it's good for my independence and it's good for my physical activity and I'll do better in school and get in trouble less if I can be active in the morning.
Wow.
And I think that's something that me as a teacher can leverage my relationships with students to encourage them to participate. And there's another teacher, Emily Stutz in Brooklyn, who leads a Bergen bike bus. And, she's seen amazing success. And I think as an educator, when you see the joy of children arriving to school walking or biking on a walking school bus or a bike bus versus the everyday chaos of arrival and dismissal otherwise, you just can't unsee it.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you find out about the bike bus movement yourself and get started making one?
Yeah, so I've been active in Safe Routes to School, being a champion at my school in Boston and in Portland for 8 years now. And so I started a bike bus in Roxbury, Massachusetts at my school in Boston the first year that I was there. And I did a walking school bus, and it was just one route. It was a mile. We had 10 kids. And I think that's something important when you see my viral videos of 150 plus students biking to school. I started with a walking school bus with 10 students. And again, once, you see the joy of children walking to school and the community building and just how excited they are to interact with their peers and teachers and other family members, you just really can't unsee it. So sort of since that moment, I've just been incredibly passionate about active transportation to school. And so I've done walking school buses. And then last year, I saw the bike bus viral video. And it was just intuitive to me this looks amazing. This is something I have to try. And so that was like in September. That following spring for Earth Day, we did bike bus for Earth Day. And we had 75 students. And it was I didn't have a choice but to keep it going. We had a great group of parent volunteers who, were able to continue to volunteer weekly for the rest of that school year. And I think we did 5 or 6 more bike buses every week. And we went from 75 to 120.
Wow.
Then we had the summer, and I remember biking around or being at the park and seeing my students learning how to ride bikes so that they could participate in the bike bus the following year.
Wow.
Students were asking for bikes for their birthday so that they could participate in the bike bus. And I think that's something that's really important about this movement is, we have Bike and Roll to School Day, and people do bike buses, one time. And that's wonderful. It's a great place to start, and I absolutely encourage trying it. But if you can do it consistently, weekly or bi-weekly or once a month even, just having that consistency really helps build momentum. Mm-hmm. And momentum's really important.
Yeah. So when you talk about the viral video, which video are you talking about that you saw?
The one in Barcelona. We were talking about it when I was there for the Bike Bus Summit. And I think there's just something that when you see the children in the scale of a city like Barcelona, it just, it's like these kids are really taking up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And sort of coming out of lockdown and the pandemic and starting school again, it just, touches something in everyone emotionally. It's this sense of freedom, of loss, of joy, of, longing for better times, wanting a better future for our children. And I think when you look at the comments on my bike bus videos on TikTok or on Twitter, people are literally there. Why am I crying? I'm so emotional. Right. I'm so glad I'm not the only one here crying. Okay, good. Why is this making me, so happy?
Right.
And I think it's this thing. We want our children to thrive. And the bike bus movement is sort of the first story of children thriving since the pandemic.
If you'd like to hear more of my conversation with Sam Balto, just head on over to thewaroncars.org, click Support Us, and you can join for as little as $3 a month.